All right, so this is for Randa Adnan. If I ruined your name, I'm sorry. So the first thing I would say right off the bat is the ultimate kind of reason that you've got your perspective is off is there's a couple different things, and the first thing that I would say right off the bat is that your perspective is off because if you're drawing from a perspective kind of point of view, and I'm just going to show you here. So, oops, yeah, change this to RGB and don't flatten. Okay, so if we're looking at this, so your perspective line is basically kind of coming along here, and we're just basically lining up your perspective, and the perspective kind of looks a little bit pretty close, but there's little kind of errors that are off. And so you can see here, like the ceiling comes down to this point here, and the top of the bar comes to this point, but the rest of the bar doesn't come until just about that point right there. And so it's little things like that that are kind of skewing your perspective and making it look off. So you need to really kind of come to those points and make sure things look really kind of spot on. And so that's the first and foremost thing that I would tell you right off the bat. And then same thing kind of over here is you've got all these points coming down to about here like so, but then, you know, like it's little things like this that kind of really skew. Or you can look at this here, this looks good, or this one here kind of is off. And so it's those little things that our eye picks up, and we instinctively go, okay, something is wrong here. And even this guy here, you've got two different vanishing points on two different levels. And so that's the other aspect is ultimately what should happen is this should be at one vanishing point level. So if I'm going to kind of draw to this vanishing point, we'll use just the peak as kind of that vanishing point. You can already see things are starting to look a little bit askew. Okay, and then on top of that, if you're using the same vanishing point, this here would go up to this right there, and so your vanishing point is really skewed up. But the other aspect of that is that when you do vanishing points like this, don't keep the vanishing points on the same page, because what we're doing, and I'm going to just kind of hit default key here, and what I'm going to show you is, oops, not that one, there we go. So when you do a vanishing point, you always want to outskirt the vanishing point outside of your realm. So I'm going to show you I'm going to just show you a big piece of paper here, like so. And so if I keep the vanishing point on this paper like so, you can see that there's definitely this big skew of, you know, a box. And so you get that really distorted perspective. But if I move the vanishing points off to the side here and do the same type of vanishing system, you can see that it looks a little bit more kind of camera oriented, more realistic in the photography manner. And so the box now turns into that. So when you create this, what I would tell you to do is do your vanishing points out to the side versus on the inside like so. The other aspect of this is that your line work for your room is overpowering the line work for the rest of the place. And so as you can see, this line work here makes a huge makes less of an impact, even though it's in the foreground, than say the ceiling does. And so ultimately that is another aspect that you want to really kind of look at and kind of pay attention to. Another one is that and I'm going to just kind of bring this up. Another one is that your ovals here, like this perspective looks good, so I would just we're just going to stroke this, 6 points, be done. But this, the vanishing point doesn't change on this because it is a circle. So this would actually be stroke something like that. And so those are fixes that you want to make too. So those are little things that you want to really kind of fix and kind of work with right off the bat. But the next thing is like I said, your brush stroke here is thick and thin, and it's all kind of that one kind of point. And so what I would tell you to do is ultimately really kind of force the vanishing point really, or force the perspective really smaller. And then don't just draw the lighting on here. When you have this, don't just draw your generic lighting like so, but instead really focus on what elements you're trying to lighten up. And so here, the first thing I would do is grab this piece here, and I would adjust the values. So if I go into the values here, and I'm going to really kind of stroke those values down like so. Actually, let's just do this. Let's go adjustment, hue, saturation, and let's bring the lightness and darkness values something like this. So by doing that, you're now pushing that solid shape to the foreground element, and it's looking a lot better. The other aspect is the rest of the place. And so what I would tell you to do is pick where you want your lighting. So in this case, I'm going to just go in the polygon lasso, and I'm going to do a couple of things like this, and I'm going to use the gradient tool here. Let's see if I can find my gradient. There we go. And let's color swap. And so here we have a strong light, and I'm going to just probably do an overlay or maybe even a soft light here, something like so. And then in a new layer, I would do, again, the same type of thing. So, keep this type of thing. In fact, actually, let's just do this. So here, we're going to do the gradient again. And we're actually going to lower this down a little bit. And then over here, I think we're going to do another gradient. And then the shadows on the bar seats would be wrong too. And I'm just letting you know that. Because the bar seats would be more of a downward shadow as well. But, so you can see here, let's grab brush. So that one's soft light, so let's change all these to soft light. So you can see here that light now kind of focuses and makes things look a little bit more interesting. And then what I would do is on this particular one, I would go through and cut off, and just delete, something like so. Let's just go in and kind of fix the eraser here. So something along the lines of like this. And so that now gives you a little bit more sense of what's going on. And then what you can also do is reinforce that light with the darkness. And so I would grab something along the lines of this. And I'm just going to do a rough and then we can use the gradient. And so now you've got emphasis going on. And so those are things that you really want to kind of sit down and think about what you're trying to really focus on. In this case, here, in this case, the focus would be on the guy, and that would actually like subtract some of the other stuffs. And so again, what is your focus? What is your content that you want to deliver? as kind of that primary kind of feeling. And so like this guy here, we can actually subtract some of this side of his face and give him just a little bit of light. And then let's go in here and oops, let's go on here, and we would just kind of erase some of the shadows like so. So, but you can see now by doing that, by one, fixing your perspective, two, making sure that you have your line thickness adjusted to be normal, unified, so that it's not all big thick lines. And then three, get your values in place. I think you'll get a better kind of concept of where you need to take this. All right? So I hope that helps.